15 of his in the fourth quarter. The first round series is tied at 2 apiece. Game 5 is Wednesday night in L.A. One of the greatest players in the history of women's basketball announced her retirement Sunday. Candace Parker said goodbye after 16 seasons in the WNBA, 13 with the LA Sparks. The 38-year-old Parker won WNBA titles with the Sparks, Las Vegas Aces, and Chicago Sky. She also was a 2-time WNBA MVP, a 2-time Olympic gold medalist, and won 2 NCAA championships at Tennessee. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is dedicated to empowering our communities by providing progressive talk radio for our audience. We strive to be an intersectional voice for the voiceless. As a Black-owned and operated station, we are committed to highlighting diverse perspectives and creating safe spaces for meaningful dialogue. We believe that everyone has something unique to bring to these political, economic, social, and cultural conversations, and we don't shy away from the hard conversations about current events. We endeavor to be a beacon of hope and understanding, while boldly challenging listeners to think more deeply about difficult topics that impact us all. With this in mind, our mission statement at KBLA Talk 1580 is simple: to create an inclusive platform that promotes civil discourse through honest dialogue and encourages personal growth among our listeners, so they can become the active agents of change. Our vision is to establish ourselves as the premier radio network with relevant programming across the beloved community, connecting people through shared experiences and collective power for lasting impact beyond these challenging times.
That's Stevie Wonder. I'm Tavis, Smiley. I'm delighted to have you with us in this hour. And in this hour, 2 conversations. On the B side of this hour, on Saturday, South Africa celebrated 30 years since the end of apartheid. We will talk about how far South Africa has come in meeting its freedom goals on the backside of this hour with former Clinton administration Ambassador Charles R. Stith, who also serves as the non-executive chairman of the African Presidential Leadership Center in Joburg. But we commenced this hour with Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman on the Trump trials, the escalating war in Ukraine, and his cameo in the series finale of Curb Your Enthusiasm. Colonel Vindman, good to have you on the program, sir. How are you today?
I'm doing well, Tavis. Thanks for having me on, and passing a hello from my wife, who's a fan of yours, Rachel.
Oh, thank you, Rachel. I appreciate that. I take all the love I can get anywhere I can get it. So thank you for that. Let me just jump right in first on the Ukraine issue. And the word Ukraine hasn't come out of my mouth for a few days, in part because what is in front of it is Israel, Hamas, Donald Trump, Joe Biden. It almost seems, and this is the way the news cycle works, as you well know, you have all these conflicts around the globe at the same time, but some things get pushed off the front pages. What is it over the last few weeks, specifically about Ukraine, the war in Ukraine, that we've been missing, focused on these other things that you want to refocus us on in this moment?
Sure. So let me first say, I think they're all kind of connected. Mm-hmm. We tend to think of these things as kind of geographically disparate, Middle East, Europe, Eurasia, the U.S., there's actually a bigger systemic struggle between the authoritarian regimes, the tyrants, the dictators around the world, and an opportunity they see to advance their interests versus democracy and the gains democracy has made, certainly since World War II, and probably more so since the end of the Cold War in 1991. So I think these things are connected. You don't have Iran launching attacks against Israel without being emboldened by Russia upsetting the apple cart in Europe. You don't have these kinds of aggressive moves in the Pacific without a opportunity presented by a general erosion in kind of norms and rules of the road in the world. But with regards to Ukraine specifically, because it is the driver behind a lot of these other systems, a lot of these other systemic threats, Ukraine's been under pressure. I mean, today, if you're watching closely, Russia is making some tactical gains, inching forward. Ukraine is the largest country in Europe, but Russia has been making, meters, 100 meters, kilometers grabs in territory because the U.S. wasn't able to come through with the kind of support that that we said we were going to provide since the beginning of this war. As long as it takes was the rhetoric coming out of the White House, but we weren't able to follow up through on that because the absolute utter chaos of the Republican Party just freezing everything for the past 6 months. And Russia took advantage of this. I mean, it's a microcosm of the bigger issue that when the West is weak, when the West is distracted, Russia will advance. Russia will seek out those opportunities, widen fractures. They do that with regards to the rhetoric in our own politics, in our own policies. They're certainly doing that, in this important battlefield in Ukraine. So that's what's been going on. I've been breathing a bit of a sigh of relief over the past couple of days because we finally did pass this $61 billion aid project, and we should look at it not as all this money going to Ukraine, most of that money staying here, but we should look at that as a way to buy down the risk of U.S. troops ending up in Europe. That's what's so important about providing support to Ukraine.
I hear your point loud and clear. I'm not so sure Americans see it that way. I'm not so sure they buy that line. When we come forward, let's interrogate that line. I hear it coming out of your mouth. I'm just not so sure the American public is sold on that, number one. Number two, beyond the drama in the Republican Party and why it took so long to get this $61 billion approved for Ukraine, there is the question of whether or not Americans writ large have Ukraine fatigue, and that's just Ukraine. I haven't gotten to the Trump trials and other issues I want to cover in this half hour with Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman, who you're listening to right now on Tavis Smiley.
From Leimert Park with love, this is Tavis Smiley.
Hey y'all, Mona Swain here from Target's new YouTube series, My Cart is Full, where we feature Black founders and creators highlighting their connection to our community. As an actor and content creator, I love using my voice to inspire young Black women who look like me. When it comes to feeding my shine, seeing myself reflected in Black-owned and founded products at Target brings me joy. Together, we are Black Beyond Measure. Learn more at target.com/Black Beyond Measure.
Cookie wants to be a professional wrestler.
I'm Cookie Serratos, and I'm 11 years old.
She also wants to win all the medals. That's why Cookie and her family make every day count, squeezing out her best with Go-Go Squeeze.
Okay, Cookie, let's break for a Go-Go Squeeze.
Go-Go Squeeze Fruit on the Go pouches are a nutritious snack made from 100% fruit with no sugar added.
Call Cookie!
Because when you nurture your kids, you squeeze out the best in them. Squeeze out the best with Go-Go Squeeze. Not a low-calorie food. Products range from 11 to 13 grams of sugar and 60 to 70 calories per serving.
Some days I cover up because of my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis. Now I'm hitting the road with clearer skin thanks to Skyrizi, Rizumkizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. With Skyrizi, 3 out of 4 people achieved 90% clearer skin at 4 months. And Skyrizi is just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. your doctor today about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist-prescribed biologic in psoriasis. And visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKY-RIZZI to learn more.
I have diabetes. I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
I have asthma. I'm at risk, too.
If you're 19 or older with chronic conditions like asthma, diabetes, COPD, or heart disease, or are 65 or older, you are at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine, a Pfizer vaccine that can help protect you against pneumococcal pneumonia in just one dose. Even if you've already been vaccinated with other pneumonia vaccines, Prevnar 20 may help provide added protection. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. Side effects include pain and swelling at the injection site, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 or visit Prevnar20.com.
Helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman of the Vindman Group. Before I get back to Ukraine, Colonel Vindman, let me come first to a point you made a few moments ago about the tempering, as it were, of the spread of democracy around the globe. Let me just come more direct. One could argue, looking at a map, looking at a globe right now, one could argue that democracy is on the ropes, sir.
I think you could actually, I would agree with that. Is the bottom line. I think the fact is that you have a convergence of powers around the globe, Russia and China. China being a massive economic power, huge population, that are working together with smaller powers like Iran, North Korea, Venezuela, to provide an alternative to democracy. Democracy looked like it won the Cold War, emerged the U.S. as a sole superpower for a moment, and there was not really a lot of ways that the remaining authoritarian regimes looked like they could come together or partner or advance. I think the fact is that we took our eye off the ball. The 20 years of war in the Middle East against terrorism allowed places like Russia, like China, to garner their strength and what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of rebound, resurge, and this is their moment. It kind of reminds me a little bit of, you might know Kelly Robinson from Human Rights Campaign. Mm-hmm. She's a Kettering fellow with me, and I heard her speak beautifully about why we're facing so many challenges within our democracy today. And she basically made the point, it's because we've come so far. And I think there's something that's kind of a good metaphor for the fact that democracy has advanced over the past 30 years. A lot of people have been taken out of poverty around the globe, but the forces of aggression, the forces of, kind of historical dictators are looking to score some points and accelerate. So I think that's part of the story. We keep progressing, but we're now experiencing a step back, if that makes sense.
No, I mean, philosophically, I was wrestling with that as you shared it. It makes sense philosophically. I get it intellectually, and yet practically, I think that argument only goes so far. Because when you look, for example, at Donald Trump, let me pivot to Trump, and I promise I'll come back to Ukraine. Yeah. But you look at Donald Trump, the damage that he has done, some of it, one could argue, is even irreparable. But the damage that he has done to this experiment in democracy has nothing to do with how far we've come. It has to do with his arrogance, with his petulance, with his authoritarian views. I could run the list, but that's not about how far democracy's come. It's about allowing someone in with those kinds of views and giving them access to the reins of power. That only happens when a significant number of fellow citizens empower him by voting for him to have that sort of access. That's got nothing to do with how far we've come. That's just regressive politics all the way around.
I don't know. I guess I see it a little bit differently. I think it is the fact that we've had so many the flourishing of rights for the LGBT community, I think it's because we've probably made some gains with regards to being a more kind of inclusive society, that there are regressive forces that are on the losing end of that power that are looking to pick somebody like Donald Trump that would, take us backwards. And I think it is a story of the fact that we're it's hard to see it because we're in a fight right now.
Yeah.
And what's on the horizon with this election will determine whether we do continue to march towards that more perfect union. I know it's a little bit flowery, but or do we go backwards? And I think the fact is that the long arc of maybe U.S. history seems to be taking us forward with these moments of regression. I guess I have quite a bit of confidence that we're going to make the right decision. I see that in election results, special elections, that really kind of mind-blowing outcome in Alabama, where Trump won by 30 points, and then Democratic challenger in a special election won by 18 because there was a concerted effort to take away reproductive rights, to infringe on kind of in vitro fertilization and people's desires to have families. I think that's where we are seeing the forces of regression, launch a keen concerted assault to take us back because we were making progress.
No, I take the argument. My only point, we'll move on. I want to cover some other stuff in the time I have left. My only point in what I said a moment ago was to suggest the following: that Donald Trump is not some rogue dictator who has a band of rebels in some small banana republic that under the cover of darkness came and took over the reins of power. That's not how this happened. To the extent that Donald Trump got elected the first time, and to the extent he could get reelected this time, it's because 70 million plus fellow citizens empowered him to do that. And I hear your argument about, you take one step forward in democracy, two steps backwards. I get it. It's a struggle. Freedom is a never-ending meeting. I understand that part. I'm just making the point that if he pulls this off, it's because a bunch of other Americans who say they believe in democracy, who say they believe in freedom, who say they believe in et cetera, empowered him to do that. And I digress. That's my point. It's not just some rogue dictator grabbing power through military might. So we agree on that point. Let me pivot right quick. Back to Ukraine swiftly here. If I said to you that I see data that suggests to me that Americans writ large are suffering right now, not just Republicans, but Americans writ large are suffering from Ukraine fatigue, you'd say what?
I would say that I've seen some of the same polling, and I would say that it's largely bad polling in how you ask a question. For instance, if you say, should we give Ukraine a blank check, should we give Ukraine money? The answer is, by and large, going to be no. But if you say, should we support Ukraine, a struggling democracy, fending off an authoritarian regime, you get a different kind of answer. And we live in a representative democracy, so technically our representatives are supposed to kind of fall in line with what the people's will is. And what we saw in this passage of the Ukraine aid bill is an overwhelming support, somewhere in the ballpark of 75% of Congress voted for it. And the good polling that I've seen actually stays relatively consistent with that. You have, somewhere in the band of 65 to 75% of the American public still supports Ukraine. But there is a big, busy agenda, whether it's the Middle East, whether it's the most important thing, which is the health of our own democracy and our elections, or any number of crises that pop up. It's hard for us to maintain focus for more than 2 years on something that seems an ocean away. So I think there is some of that. I just think it tends to be a little overstated. And by and large, I think the Ukrainian struggle, a struggle for democracy, that the underdog story, that all kind of still resonates with the American public by and large, but there has been some erosion, yes.
Yep. So I would respond by saying to you that the polling also suggests that most Americans believe that we can and should do better by our babies, do better by our children. So if you ask them that question, they say yes. But when it comes to actually funding things like the child tax credit, it's an uphill battle every time. And so the rub for me is that Americans want to export democracy. I get that. And so we keep cutting these checks to Ukraine. I get that. The latest check, $61 billion, to the point that you made earlier. But you have to fight like the devil to get anywhere near that, not even close to that, for something like the child tax credit. And I think that says something about this democracy as well. Does it not?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is a shame that we have rhetoric around the fact that we care for life in swaths of this country, but that only seems to matter, while there's a fetus in the uterus, and then afterwards we don't seem to care so much. Mm-hmm. So it is a shame. We have a $27 trillion economy, the largest in the world. We have the ability to do multiple things at the same time, but we can't seem to prioritize. And I think it's just a broader paralysis in our system that is not allowing us to do things that the Biden administration has actually, by and large, been extremely successful in. It's been maybe one of the most successful in a generation or longer with regards to implementing policies that really advance and improve the lot of everyday Americans, whether that's, bring back industrial manufacturing, whether that's inflation reduction. There's just been so many different things we could do. And I think a second Biden administration, especially if we're able to win back the House, may see a huge gain on the policy and legislative side that could really kind of prove the worth of the Democrats in a way that somehow hasn't translated as well as it should. But yeah, I think we could do both. The overseas investments are to make sure that we don't have to spend huge resources on a costly war. And that, stability in Europe, which is our largest trading partner, is important for economic growth, but we can't forsake all the things we should be doing for our own population. We have the resources to do it, and we just don't.
Yeah, I would argue, we don't have time to have this argument, but I would argue if we had the time that we're already spending billions of dollars on a war. We're engaged in a couple of different proxy wars right now. So we may not have boots on the ground, but one could argue, I think, credibly and forcefully and maybe even accurately that we're engaged in a couple of proxy wars right now. I digress on that for now. Let me ask you a question that I've not asked of anybody else. I haven't talked to anybody in the last few days that has the frame, that operates inside the frame that you do. So the work of the Vindman Group is international, not just domestic. And so since we've been talking about international politics, let me ask you what your read is, what your sense of, as you talk to folk around the globe, what your sense is of the way that the people outside of this country, around the world, are watching these Trump trials. We have these conversations, of course, inside of our border about the way we see these trials, these indictments unfolding little by little. But what's your sense of the way the world sees a former U.S. president? Again, I used the phrase banana republic earlier. You see this kind of stuff all the time in banana republics and other places around the world that are less civilized. I'm putting civilized in air quotes right now. You can't see me. This is radio. Less civilized countries around the world. But what's your sense of how the world is watching these Trump trials?
I'll tell you, there is a deep sense of anxiety, and I think, frankly, many think we've lost our minds. We've lost our way. We've lost our minds. That we elected a president that, frankly, a lot of this stuff was already known and had occurred before this, right? This is not like since he was in office, this, Stormy Daniels stuff or later. I mean, plenty of things happened afterwards, but we elected somebody like this. And now for the whole world to see, this is who the Americans, pick to be their national leader. So I think there is deep anxiety that somebody like this could end up back in power, the leader of the free world, as we were known, and people are kind of in a bit of a panic. So this question comes up all the time. Mm-hmm. What are the chances that Trump could be president again? We survived one Trump term. I think if he ends up in office again, we will have lost. I don't know if we could recover, but we would have lost a generation of credibility around the world if we could ever recover from it. So it would be a terrible tragedy.
Yeah, I was going to ask this question. Let me press forward anyway, because it's a slight tweak on what you just said. What would the message be to the world? We were talking earlier about democracy and how one could look at a map of the globe and make a credible argument. The democracy right now is on the ropes. What kind of message would it send to the world community after being indicted that Donald Trump could be reelected in this country?
It would mean that democracies around the world are on their own. It would mean that we would be kind of in a world of the rules of the jungle where the strong could play on the weak. And you could see some democracies banding together more effectively to resist. But even so, that's hard to fathom in places like the Pacific. So you could see people making compromises with authoritarian regimes, maybe even adjusting their own systems to accommodate those regimes. In Europe, I think the fact is that you already see some trend lines. The president of France, Emmanuel Macron, has already voiced that Europe has to be much more muscular and can't rely on the U.S. The U.S. is unreliable in certain regards. So I think the message would be to our enemies, this is your moment. To our friends, you're on your own. Do what you can.
Mm-hmm. I got about 60 seconds here. Tell me about this this cameo in the series finale of Curb Your Enthusiasm.
I actually haven't watched it yet, but it was fun. That is an awesome crew and an awesome cast. It was a pleasure to do something so outside of my comfort zone, and then learn that my comfort zone should probably be expanded. So it was a good time. Glad to be a part of that. My daughter says I can't act. I'd like to. I try to prove that otherwise, but it was fun. I'm glad I got a chance to do that. And I'll be out in LA, for visiting some friends here and some family in the coming weeks. Maybe see if I could reconnect with those folks from Curb.
No, it was a long-running series, had a huge success, and a high honor for you to have been involved in the series finale of Curb Your Enthusiasm. His name is Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman. He runs the Vindman Group, and I've delighted in having him on this program to discuss some international issues as well as stuff on the domestic agenda. Colonel Vindman, all the best to you, sir. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
When we come forward, Saturday, over the weekend, they celebrated the 30th anniversary of the end of apartheid in South Africa, believe it or not, 3 decades ago. This historic election took place in South Africa, which brought to an end the era of apartheid. We'll talk about that with Ambassador Charles R. Stith when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Unapologetically progressive. Unapologetically black. You're tapped into Tavis Smiley.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know the United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time? Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Almost a month after 7 of its workers were killed in an Israeli airstrike, World Central Kitchen is resuming its charity work in war-torn Gaza. The D.C.-based charity, which provides meals to people facing war or natural disasters, said operations will resume today with a Palestinian team delivering food. In California, welding students at San Diego College are continuing efforts to replicate the iconic black family statues. The statues were created in 1974 by local artist Rossi Wade and were a symbol of strength and pride for the black community. The original statue was eventually removed after years of deterioration. A $195,000 grant was secured to kickstart efforts to recreate the statue. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Mother's Day is coming up, and Macy's Backstage has amazing deals on great gifts that Mom is going to love, all for $15 and under. Get low prices every day at Macy's Backstage. Find a store near you today at macysbackstage.com. Off price, on trend, arriving daily.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A monumental win for the Clippers Sunday in Dallas. They won by 5 after blowing a 31-point lead and not having Kawhi Leonard. Leonard is still dealing with inflammation in his right knee. Paul George and James Harden stepped up big time in Kawhi's absence. Both dropped 33 points. Harden scored 15 of his in the fourth quarter. The first-round series is tied at 2 apiece. Game 5 is Wednesday night in L.A. One of the greatest players in the history of women's basketball announced her retirement Sunday. Candace Parker said goodbye after 16 seasons in the WNBA, 13 with the LA Sparks. The 38-year-old Parker won WNBA titles with the Sparks, Las Vegas Aces, and Chicago Sky. She also was a 2-time WNBA MVP, a 2-time Olympic gold medalist, and won 2 NCAA championships at Tennessee. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Wendy's new Cinnabon Pull-Apart is here to satisfy morning cravings with its warm, sweet cinnamon sugar rolled dough, ooey-gooey texture, and signature cream cheese frosting. Get the best part in every bite this morning with Wendy's new Cinnabon Pull-Apart. Only at participating U.S. Wendy's.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Race, culture wars, political turf battles, criminal justice, and injustice. The courts. These are the conversations you won't hear elsewhere. My guests are leading journalists, celebrities, and sports figures, elected leaders, and influencers. They aren't afraid to get into it and say the quiet part out loud. With Ariva Martin in real time, your commute just became the most engaging part of your day. Tune in weekdays from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. or find us on YouTube. Ariva Martin in real time, when you want it straight, no chaser.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Getting connected has never been easier. Get free Wi-Fi at all LA County library locations, inside the library and outside in the parking lots. Visit your local library and get connected today.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same but is 95% cheaper? And you can get it online at hims.com/joy. Through Hims, you'll get a free medical consultation to determine the ED medication that's best for you, discreet shipping if prescribed, a 100% online process, and a range of treatment options, including trusted generic alternatives to the name brands, at up to 95% off. ED is personal, and at Hims, so is treating it. Just go to hims.com/joy and get connected to a licensed medical provider online for free, with zero copay, no expensive appointments, and no awkward face-to-face conversations. To start your free online visit, you need to go to this exclusive address, hims.com/joy. That's hims.com/joy for your free online visit. hims.com/joy.
Okay, raise your hand if you want to make your life a little bit easier. Great. Now raise your other hand if you like to be comfortable. Perfect. Now that you have both hands raised, imagine putting on your shoes. And that, folks, right there is your answer to an easier, more comfortable life. Go hands-free with Skechers Slip-ins. This is footwear you don't need your hands to put on. They can be raised in the air, and you can just step it and go. Why don't you experience what people can't stop talking about? Life-changing Skechers Slip-ins. Get your Slip-ins at a Skechers store, Skechers.com, or wherever stylish footwear is sold.
Made fresh daily in the Mert Park,
Los Angeles, California.
You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
My name is Nelson Mandela. I look back to the achievements not of individuals, but to the achievements of collective action. A group of men and women. That is the nature of our struggle. Without that struggle, we would still be under apartheid. It is always important to look at your history. You can't really be proud of yourself if you don't know your history.
On Saturday, South Africa celebrated 30 years since the end of apartheid. We will talk about how far South Africa has come in meeting its freedom goals in this hour with former Clinton administration Ambassador Charles R. Stith, who also serves as chair of the Pula Group and non-executive chairman of the African Presidential Leadership Center in Joburg. Ambassador Stith, good to have you back on this program. Sir, how are you today?
Always good to be back, Tavis, and let me commend you again for the great work that you're doing.
You are kind. You are kind. I received that. I appreciate it, and I'm humbled by it. Let me make the most of the time that we have. Does it feel like 30 years for you?
Well, the short answer is it doesn't. Because as we were discussing the other day, the older you get, the quicker the time flies.
Yeah, there's that part, as they say. That part, yeah.
But in a real sense, it does feel like it's been a lot of time. My first visit to South Africa was actually 1982.
Mm-hmm.
And so the changes that I've seen take place between 82 and 94, and I was a part of Clinton's official delegation to monitor the election, and the changes that I've seen from 94 to 2024 have been significant. Some positive and some negative. But all things considered, I think the country is headed in the right direction. It's going, as they say in Kiswahili, pole-pole. It's going very, very slowly. And there are a lot of reasons why, not the least of which I think since Zuma was elected president, the ANC has not been as faithful and as effective as it was during its first 10 years. The other thing is, which often doesn't get taken into consideration. I mean, there was a New York Times story regarding South Africa and whether or not, they really defeated apartheid.
I saw that, yeah. I saw that
this
weekend.
The past 30 years have been rough for the globe. 2001, we had the terrorist attack on the World Trade Center in New York. That convulsed the global economy. Africa felt it as much, if not more, than any other part of the world. I mean, when I arrived in Tanzania in 1998, all the economies in sub-Saharan Africa were growing in double digits. And when I say double digits, I mean at 14, 15, 17, in some cases 25%. After 2001, those rates dropped down into single digits. As those countries were starting to dig themselves out, then we had the 2008 banking debacle. And then as they were starting to dig themselves out, we had COVID. And South Africa, which pretty much parroted the Western approach to dealing with COVID, shut down its economy for more than a year. And it was devastating. The economy shrunk by 17%. That's a generation of growth. And so the top of the economy is doing a lot better. I have an office in Joburg, so I see it regularly. Matter of fact, I'm headed there the 7th of May. But for folks at the lower middle and below, man, they are still it's still rough.
Yeah. You mentioned the ANC a moment ago. Let me ask you right quick. What is your assessment? You spend a lot of time in Joburg. You have an office there. You have a home there. You're back and forth between our country and theirs. What's your sense of the state, the present state of the ANC, the African National Congress?
They've got problems. The Zuma years were really rough, and the corruption was a factor. But the bigger issue, from my perspective, is they just didn't keep their eye on the ball. Everybody was trying to figure out how they got theirs without trying to figure out how to get the country to where it needed to be. Ramaphosa has been trying to not only change the image around corruption relative to ANC, he's been trying to get it back on track, but that's been in fits and starts. I think it was a huge mistake for Ramaphosa to adopt the Western approach to dealing with COVID. Magufuli, who took a lot of heat from the West, decided to take an alternative course. Tanzania's economy grew by 2%. Now, that's anemic, but 2% growth is better than your economy shrinking by 17%. The ANC is ripe for the picking. When they had their local elections, not this cycle, but the previous cycle, the ANC lost every major city, including Mandela Bay. And if the competition were up to it, they could be beaten. They're projected to lose their majority for the first time. They'll be large enough probably to construct a coalition to remain in power, but they're struggling.
For those who don't understand South African politics, the alternative to all we know is the ANC, the party of Mandela. Right. What is the alternative? When you say they're ripe for the picking, what's the alternative?
Well, there are two parties that are potentially positioned because they both have constituency. One is the DA, which is the legacy party of the old National Party, which was controlled by the Afrikaners, and the DA is still controlled by the Afrikaners. And then there's the EFF, Julius Malema, who was one of the young firebrands in the ANC that was nudged out, and he formed his own party, and they've been able to build a grassroots constituency. And they've coalesced in a couple of occasions at the local level to put a mayor in place over the ANC candidate. I mean, in Boston, Kevin White, who was mayor, was longtime mayor, they were giving him heat and suggesting that his poll numbers look bad, and he said, "Look, I'm waiting for election day." Because right now, you all have me running against the Almighty. The issue is who's the alternative.
Nope.
And the DA looked like they were positioning themselves. They appointed a black president, a fellow by the name of Musi Maimane, and young guy, articulate, charismatic, looked like he was going to be able to do something. And in parliamentary systems, they have shadow cabinets. And the white woman who was the shadow minister of justice in a public setting said that the thing that was wrong with South Africa is that the police needed to be more like they were during the apartheid era. Well, that's not a winning hand.
No, it's not a winning hand. When we by any stretch, right? When we come forward, and I think you'll take my point. I asked this respectfully, having met him a couple of times, and one of the great joys of my life was to have shaken the hand of Nelson Mandela on a couple of different occasions. But I wonder, and you'll take what I'm getting at here. With the passage of time, does Mandela's legacy grow or does it shrink? And that I'm connecting that obviously to the state of his country. Does his legacy in the rearview mirror, does it grow? Does it shrink 30 years since the end of apartheid? Our guest is former ambassador to Tanzania during the Clinton era, Charles R. Stith on Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good.
Yeah, man.
Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
We used to argue about whose turn it was to clean the gutters, but then I had Leaf Filter gutter protection installed.
Wait, I told you Leaf Filter had free inspections and estimates and a lifetime guarantee.
Meaning we never have to argue about whose turn it is to clean the gutters again.
But I visited leaffilter.com/beacon first.
No, I did.
It doesn't matter who. Visit leaffilter.com/beacon to schedule your free gutter inspection and get up to 30% off today.
See representative for warranty details. Promotion is 20% off plus a 10% senior or military discount. One discount per household.
Did you know that feeling sluggish or weighed down could be a sign that your digestive system isn't working at its best? Taking Metamucil every day can help. Metamucil fiber powders help promote your daily digestive health using a plant-based fiber called psyllium. The gelling action of this special fiber traps and removes waste so you can feel lighter and more energetic. Metamucil, promoting digestive health for a better you. Learn more at metamucil.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Girl, I have a secret. When I get stressed out, I get sweaty. That's why I use Secret Clinical Antiperspirant. It's like my own secret weapon. For 72 hours, I get Secret's strongest protection against sweat caused by stress, heat, and activity, because you know how crazy life can get. Plus, it's made with advanced odor fighters that don't just cover up smelliness. They help prevent it from happening in the first place. Believe me, if I weren't wearing Secret, I'd be a hot, smelly mess. Thankfully, Secret works.
Hi, this is Quentin. A little thing I love about Chick-fil-A chicken strips are how satisfying they are. The chicken strips are amazing. They're always filling, crispy, tender, and juicy. Definitely one of my favorite things on the menu. Especially when you add in that Chick-fil-A sauce. Always the perfect combination. And then personally, you know me, I'm getting a 4 count. I want as much chicken as possible. I'm that guy. Whenever I get them, whether it be lunch or for dinner, in my household, it's always a winner.
Order the chicken strips on the Chick-fil-A app today. Real customer paid for their testimonial.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Ambassador Charles R. Stith as we talk about, celebrate, in fact, the 30th anniversary of the end of apartheid with this historic election 3 decades ago, celebrated on Saturday specifically, but here we are now, first of the week, with our say on their celebration, and indeed a world celebration over the weekend for the end of apartheid 3 decades ago. I asked moments ago, and I'm watching my time here, Ambassador Stith, whether or not as time marches on, Mandela's legacy grows or shrinks, and I ask that because that legacy is not disconnected from whatever is to be in South Africa. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, and as I was saying to you as we were going off air, I mean, are there some attacks and is there greater scrutiny on what happened during Mandela's time in office? And the short answer to that is yes. I'd also add that, if you're the dead guy in the conversation, you don't have an opportunity to offer a response.
Retort. Yeah.
Now, the upside is, Mandela is an iconic figure. And for better or for worse, everybody who's followed him doesn't measure up. Mm-hmm. Is it fair to ask, could he have done some other things? The short answer, again, is yes. But I think the more poignant answer is that, what is this generation doing to move the country forward? Mandela set exactly the right tone and tenor when he became president. He left office without any urging at the height of his popularity, which kind of set in, not in stone, obviously, but really kind of set an example that transitions should take place in an orderly fashion. Mm-hmm. That if you're president, you're not president for life. Both of those things were extremely, extremely important. During Mandela's tenure, when the ANC took over the country, it was virtually bankrupt. And everybody thought it was going to hell in a handbasket. And yet during the first 10 years, and even though Mandela was president only 5, his deputy president, Mbeki, who was his point guy during his term, became president. So I see that as a continuum.
Yeah.
They made exponential advances in housing, employment, education, healthcare, and laid the foundation for the World Games, which everybody thought they were going to blow, which turned out to be a tremendous success.
Indeed. Bill Clinton famously said, the guy you worked for as his ambassador to Tanzania, famously said years ago that every election is about the future and never about the past. When we come forward in our remaining moments with Ambassador Charles R. Stith, the future of South Africa 30 years after the fall of apartheid. You're listening, and I'm glad about it, to Tavis Smiley.
More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 believes in community empowerment through the arts. Tia Chucha Central Cultural is on a mission to transform community in the Northeast San Fernando Valley and beyond through ancestral knowledge, the arts, literacy, and creative engagement. The Northeast San Fernando Valley has a population of about 500,000, the size of the city of Oakland, yet it has no bookstores, art galleries, or full-fledged cultural spaces until Tia Chuchas opened its doors in 2001. Founded by renowned poet and activist Luis Rodriguez, Tia Chuchas Cultural Center provides a year-round free or low-cost arts and literacy bilingual intergenerational programming in mural painting, music, dance, writing, visual arts, healing art sessions, and healing talking circles. Activities also include Mexica, Aztec dance, indigenous cosmology, philosophy, and 2 weekly open mic nights, one in Spanish, the other in English. In addition, they host author readings, film screenings, and art exhibits. To express yourself, heal yourself, attend an event, or volunteer, please visit www.tiachucha.org. That's TIACHUCHA.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
I can't believe tax season is here already. Look at all this info I have to enter.
Phil's small accounting firm is growing in numbers.
Why didn't I take that typing class in high school?
A data entry specialist could really help him in a crunch.
I got blisters on my fingers.
Indeed can help him hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. You can schedule and conduct virtual interviews all from your employer dashboard. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Sounds different. Huh. This is Tavis Smiley.
It would take Ambassador Stith more than 3 minutes to unpack the future of South Africa, number one. And number two, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but based on where this nation is 30 years after apartheid, what's your sense of where it's headed?
I think it's headed in the right direction, and firmly so, because there's a commitment to constitutional government. So as long as that's in place, you've got a foundation on which to build. I think the country is going to go forward. The only question is, will it continue to be poly, slowly, or will the momentum pick up and it increases? If you can get black and white and colored and Asian and Indian South Africans all on the same page, there's no reason that this country can't rocket forward.
During the Mandela era, principally born of his own charisma and charm and stature, South Africa, though, and not just him, because that Truth and Reconciliation Commission was a really big deal for all the obvious reasons, but South Africa then was a beacon of light and hope for the rest of the continent. Is it still that beacon of light and hope for the rest of the continent?
No, there are a lot of lights on the continent now.
That's fair.
You know, when you look at it still has one of the largest economies on the continent. But when you look at a place like Tanzania, which is where we also have offices, we've had my older boys just visited after being away 10 years, and they were blown away. I mean, the change has been literally jaw-dropping. Ghana, significant growth. Mauritius, which most folks don't think about as being Africa, the Mauritians see themselves as African. It's a center of the finance and technology. So there's a lot of action. And while South Africa still has a head start, if they're not careful, they're going to be playing catch up. Later next month, the president of Kenya, President Ruto, is going to be paying an official visit to the United States with all the bells and whistles. First time in 50 years that's happened for an African head of state. Kenya is growing. I was just there recently. So, if South Africans aren't careful, they're not going to be looking at other countries in the rearview mirror. They're going to be in the rearview mirror.
I got 30 seconds, so a really tight response here. How concerned should we be about what some see as the new exploitation of Africa by China?
I think it's a diversion. As long as you've got options, you're in a better place than you are if you don't. And with China in the game, it gives Africa alternatives other than the U.S. and Europe. And at the end of the day, that's good for Africa and good for the world, quite frankly.
We celebrate South Africa 3 decades post-apartheid, and we thank Ambassador Charles Stith for coming in to unpack what he sees on the continent and specifically in that country, given that he has offices there and is headed back there just a few days from now. But thanks for coming to see me on this day. Good to have you. All the best to you, my friend.
Thanks so much. Always great to be with you.
Thank you, sir. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information. DC-based charity, which provides meals to people facing war or natural disasters, said operations will resume today with a Palestinian team